Welcome to History Today. Today, we're going to do a feature on the rights and responsibilities of an East German citizen and an American citizen.
After World War II, the Communist Party controlled the eastern part of Europe, while the rest of the Allied powers occupied Western Europe. But tension soon broke out between the Soviet Union and the United States. Differences in government policies drove the two countries to begin a conflict called the Cold War. Due to this tension, the Soviet Union surrounded West Berlin in a wall to ensure no East Germans escaped.
But how different are the rights of an American citizen from an East German one? Let's look at the U.S. Constitution. U.S. citizens are guaranteed the freedoms of speech, press, petition, religion, and assembly, while East Germans are denied some of these rights. Communist ideals think that society as a whole should go before individual rights. Stalin, who led the Soviet Union until his death, was a much harsher leader than the ones that followed. They just suppressed their citizens. Though in certain communist societies, citizens were permitted to voice their personal views with those they knew well, they were never allowed to speak out against the government, so they did not have freedom of speech. What other rights were they denied? They were denied the freedoms of press and assembly. Also, the communist government discouraged the practice of organized religion because they feared it would be the downfall of their government.
But we also need to take bias into consideration. At the beginning of the Cold War, many Americans believed that East Germany was a horrible place. Americans believed there were no rights, people were oppressed, and they did not allow anyone to travel. Although some of these claims were true, they were exaggerations of the truth. Soon after, in the last years of the Cold War, Americans became less biased and started listening to people who told them that East Germany was not that bad. They heard about citizens who enjoyed life there. Although Americans' bias has lessened, there is still some left.
First up, we're going to talk with a woman who was born in Richmond, Virginia. We are going to ask her about her views and impressions of East Germany. What was your impression of East Germany and its government, and what were your thoughts on it when
I did not know much at all, probably until, just became very, I learned about the war and then the wall going up, and until it was literally in the news in the 80s when it was coming down, that's when I probably learned everything I know about it, but because then it was all happening right then. I remember watching it on the news and the wall coming down.
What were your personal views about seeing the wall coming down? And
well, it seemed like a great thing, it seemed like they were oppressed and the other side was not, and they should all have the same, rights. That's all I knew then.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yes.
Now we are going to interview Mrs. Petersen. She was born and raised in East Germany. We are going to ask her about her experience growing up there and her views when looking back.
Your living, like your house or your apartment, was it equal to everybody else's, or were there nicer apartments than other ones?
It was, so there was that longing and that idea of that everybody has a equal situations, and so we lived in an apartment, and it was built by the government, and we had people from all classes living in that apartment.
Do you ever own something like a house or a car?
That is also of course you could own your house, you could have a car, but it was definitely more difficult to have a car, and we never in my family had a car, and we never had a telephone till 25 years, and so you could, but it was not possible for everybody.
Right. Were you allowed to elect people in the government, or were they elected by other countries?
It was not elected by other countries, but it was, so there was that right of going to an election, and it also had that feeling of being a democracy, but at the end you were just given a certain amount of votes, and these were not all the people who really participated in previous preparation time of election. So it was limited.
So the government officials, did they have a lot of power in the government or only slight power?
They did have a lot of power. Yeah.
Okay. What were your views on the rights and responsibilities of people in your country?
So rights and responsibilities. So we were called a socialist society, but we still were looking for a more human way of society, because we realized that there were definitely boundaries in respect of where you could travel, what you could choose to become as a profession, and how you would express your opinion.
Were you there when the wall came down?
I was on the 9th of November, the night when the wall came down, or the decision, or that little talk was made in Potsdam. That is the neighboring city of Berlin. And yes, I was at that time in a discussion with a really interesting person, and we would talk about what might happen with East Germany, because there were so many unrest and people leaving the country, and people were open for new concepts of society and speaking their opinion against that kind of dictatorship. So I was in the midst of all these little situations.
And you agreed with the wall coming down?
It was totally unexpected, and that was nobody's vision of that it would happen that quickly and it would happen this way. And it was a little bit of a vacuum, because I would have agreed, yes, with the wall coming down, but the way how it happened, it was definitely unexpected.
Thank you for your time.